Greetings, travelers. That was cringe as fuck, but I'm CJ's. His crit happens, and it's time for another video. So I've been playing a lot of WoW since Shadowlands came out, the new expansion. But I also haven't played D&D in months and months and months, thanks to COVID and the world catching fire. So I figured, why not take one thing that I love, combine it with another thing I love in a very shitty manner, and put it on the internet to be judged by millions. And by millions, I mean like 30 views. But we're going to take the Stockades dungeon in WoW, the Stormwind Stockades, and we're going to convert it into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as a one-shot type thing. It's very short. It's a very simple dungeon. There's not a ton of lore that you need to know before you can jump into it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how we can adapt the bosses from the dungeon, as well as what I plan to use stat-wise, and what adds, what I want to convert them from to D&D, or what D&D monsters I want to convert them into. So note, this is not playtested at all. This is probably going to need to be adjusted mid-game if you're going to try and run it. If you're running out of resources, healing, and stuff like that, you can always throw in NPCs or more potions and things like that for restoring spell slots, health. It is based on WoW, where mana potions are a thing. I think I had this balanced for a party of 4 or 5 level 3s. I also tried to give it flavor text leading up to the dungeon, but rather than go into all that in this video, I'll post probably a Google Drive link to my crappy little crappy little Word doc that I'm using. So without any more rambling, let's just jump into the first wing of the dungeon. So wing 1 is Randolph Moloch. In the first area, the first quest that you're supposed to complete within the dungeon is to see, you come in, you see that the prison has had a revolt and chaos has taken hold. The players are tasked with killing Randolph Moloch, who's the rebel leader, and replacing him with his complicit or compliant twin brother, Mortimer, so that they can end the rebellion peacefully. So he'll pretend to be Randolph. So there are 3 packs that lead up to the boss. I plan to use probably 2 bandits and 1 bandit captain for each of these packs. You can swap them out, like replace the captain with like 2 more bandits or whatever you feel like you need to do to change it up. If you need a lore reason that all the packs don't just jump the characters, kind of, because in the dungeon it's a very streamlined event and you just kind of take your time, go from one to the next. But if you need a reason why they don't, you could just say that they're like looting the crates that the guards had left. They're distracted fighting other guards, looting supplies, until the players start to get closer to them and it's more of a threat. Or they could just think that they are other escaped convicts that are just out and about. If there's a cakewalk, there's also in the dungeon, there's rooms off to the sides of the main path that you can always have more bandits enter from, or have them call in other packs. I plan to, when I run this for my players, just to load up WoW on Discord, share my screen, and just literally walk through the dungeon as we go. Zoom the camera all the way in, as you'll see some of this B-roll of the characters is kind of gives them a nice visual to go with it. Is kind of the main reason I thought about changing these up. Once the players reach Randolph, once the players reach the boss room from Randolph, they'll find that there are 2 packs in the room with him. You can have them fight with him, or you can have him just watch in amusement, like he's ordered them to take care of them before jumping into the fight. He has special mechanics, as most WoW bosses do, but with this being a very low-level, easy dungeon, it's not a lot. So for him, we're going to use a veteran stat block, but buff his HP if the players are having too easy of a time with him, so that we can get his mechanics off to make the fight more memorable. That's kind of like the best thing I think WoW does compared to Dungeons & Dragons, is every boss has like a mechanic that requires you guys to do something correctly, and phases to fights usually. So his first ability is called Wildly Stabbing. In WoW, the text reads, Randolph Moloch stabs wildly, attacking every 0.3 seconds, but his chance to hit is reduced by 35%. My thought to convert this would just be to give him disadvantage for the reduced hit chance, and have him attack every player after they take their turn for 1 round, obviously with the disadvantage. His second ability, Sweep, reads Randolph Moloch inflicts physical damage to his current target and their closest ally. For this, I would just make it an attack with a slight increase in damage, maybe a +2, and make it hit the 2 closest targets in melee range. His last ability is called Vanish. It says, when Randolph Moloch reaches between 70 to 60% health and 40 to 30% health, he vanishes from sight and reappears behind a random player attacking them. This one, I would just leave it as is. When he hits certain thresholds in his HP, he poof, shadow steps, ninja, fucking substitution jutsu, teleports behind him and goes for a sneak attack. You might not want to do it as a sneak attack if you think your players are going to die too easily, but, same thing. This fight could be very fun. It can make positioning important to avoid the wild stabs and the teleport and the sweep. I've decided on the cooldown for those two abilities, but I haven't decided on it. Sorry, misspoke. But I would say that you can just look at how the fight's going. If they're making short work of him, you might want to try and do him a little quicker or a little more. Just the damage, hold back on them hitting more than once. You just play it by ear. Be a good dungeon master. After the players deal with Moloch, they can then choose to go to either side of the hallway to continue on the dungeon. Wing 2 is what we're going to cover first, which is the fire elementals, and Wing 3 will be full of gnolls. So Wing 2 is Lord Overheat, who is a very large fire elemental, and this hallway is just littered with fire elementals and slag furies. I plan to just use the Magmin stat block for them, and just say some of them are fire elementals, some of them are slag furies, but same stat block for them. There's 2 packs on the way to the boss, and 1 stronger pack in the room with him. Same as Moloch, you can either wait for them to engage or have them attack at the same time, depending on level of your players and how they're doing. For Lord Overheat himself, I'm going to use the Fire Elemental stat block. He also has 3 abilities, the first of which being Rain of Fire. This reads, Lord Overheat calls down a molten rain, inflicting fire damage to all players in a 51-yard area for 9 seconds. This one I just plan to use as an AoE fire attack. Players can try and dodge with a dex save to move out of the way. It can remain in effect for a round, so that area is just continuously getting rained on by molten lava. His second ability is called Fireball. On this one, you've got a couple choices you can make. Option 1 is literally just give him the Fireball spell, but that might be a little too strong at this level, so it just kind of depends on how your players are doing. Option 2, I would just have him use the ability as like a touch attack, or to use his touch attack. Sorry, the fire elemental has a touch attack that you could then just make it flavored to use at range and flavor it as a thrown fireball. Either keep this as the same damage and use it freely, or increase the damage and give it a cooldown to keep that special ability feel. And his last ability is Overheat, which in WoW, it burns a random player, inflicting 190 fire damage and additional 286 fire damage every 3 seconds for 9 seconds. I think we just keep this the same, but have it go off like every 3 rounds as he builds up heat. Make it hit a random player and deal 4d6 damage. So it's basically like a timer that they need to beat to avoid a big damage push that he'll radiate heat. And then obviously give them a chance to try to dodge that when it does trigger. You could have it hit all of them or just hit a specific random player. This fight I think will interest players with having the Overheat timer. Once it goes off the first time, they're going to make sure that they can try to either be prepared when they think it's going to go off again to like duck for cover, or just try to get him down as fast as possible so that it doesn't actually go off again. This will make them kind of prioritize damage or prepare to mitigate the damage when it does come back around. Then Wing 3, we've got one of the greatest villains in all of World of Warcraft with Hogger, the terrible leader of the gnolls that have killed countless adventurers. So for side note, for those who aren't getting my reference to him being one of the greatest villains, is Hogger is a rare mob in the human starting area from Classic WoW. He's still in the game, obviously, but from Classic WoW, he was like one of the very first like rare bosses that required multiple people to kill. You could not really do it by yourself unless you over leveled. So a lot of players learned that the hard way. So he has killed a lot of players, thus making him a famous WoW villain. I think up to this point he still has the most kills as a mob, even than others. Don't fact check me on that. I could be wrong now, but I remember seeing that somewhere, that he was still like one of the longest, or like has the most kills as a character, as an NPC. Following the dungeon itself, we'll have 3 packs on the way to him, probably with about 4 gnolls each. Maybe give one of them a healing type spell to represent shamans. And then there's 2 packs in the room with Hogger. He also has 3 abilities, which who would have guessed? For him, I'm using the Gnoll Fang of Yinogu. I don't know how to pronounce that. Stat block. His first ability, Vicious Slice in WoW, slices his target, inflicting physical damage instantly, and an additional 5% of the target's max health every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. I would probably make this an extra damage die attack, so another dice for whatever his attack roll is, that leaves a bleed on the target for like 1d4 rounds or something like that, for like 1d4 damage each tick. I would do the damage probably after each time the player goes and takes their turn. His second ability is Maddening Call, where Hogger unleashes a maddening call, inflicting 686 physical damage to all players within 301 yards, and reduces their melee attack, ranged attack, and casting speed by 60% for 5 seconds. So I'm gonna make this so that he just like lets out this blood-curdling scream that fears the players, just gives them disadvantage for the next round. And then his last ability is a fun one. In WoW, when Hogger reaches 30% remaining health, he enrages, increasing physical damage dealt by 10% and melee attack speed by 30%. For this one, I would just increase his damage done by 1 damage die probably, and give him 2 attacks per round. At this point, he's almost dead and has entered just like a bloodlust, foaming, rabid state, giving the players a sense of like fear and adrenaline added to the finish of the fight. So to sum all this up, I've not tested this at all. You're probably going to need to adjust a lot of things, including like the pack sizes, the boss's health, all that kind of stuff. I just thought this would be a fun little thing to try out, see how well it goes, because I just love WoW so much, as well as Dungeons & Dragons. Mixing the two just seemed like a perfectly fun thing to do. I plan to run this partially on Roll20 for a battle map, so you could easily just pull the actual in-game map to reference for them, but I'm also going to be on Discord, like I said, screen sharing, as I just kind of walk through WoW. This gives the players better visuals and ambiance, and helps you as a DM to not have to worry about your descriptive skills for the area. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you do test it, please let me know in the comments how it worked so we can fine-tune it together, so we can make the document as optimal as possible for others. If you like this idea, we have plenty of dungeons and zones that we could go through. Let me know which ones you want to do in the comments below. I think that my players are going to want to make this a campaign afterwards if it does go the way that I hope it does. And the reason I picked this dungeon specifically is if this one-shot goes well, very easily you could tie Moloch into the Defias Brotherhood and send them to the Westfall storyline, which in itself could be an entire campaign, culminating in just running dead mines, which we could convert also. So that's my plan going forward. If you guys enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and remember, crit happens. Peace.